Let us discuss a bit more about functions in JavaScript. We frequently hear that functions are first-class citizens in JavaScript. What does that mean? It means a couple of things. First is a function can be passed as an argument to other functions, just like integers, strings, arrays, or objects. When we make a function call, we typically pass integers, strings, arrays, objects as arguments. Similarly, we can pass a function as an argument. And the second point is a function can return a function as its return value, just like integers, strings, arrays, or objects. We very often have a function returning a value, and that value can be an integer, a string, an array, or an object. And similarly, that return value can also be a function. So a function can return a function also. Please note that these aspects of functional programming in JavaScript have been present even before ES6. We are discussing these aspects in this section because they are very important. Let us look at some examples to discuss these points. First, let us discuss how a function is a value, just like an integer or a string. Here I have three variables, I, str, and f, and I is assigned to an integer 0, str is assigned to a string hello world, and f is assigned to a function. Observe that just like the integer 0 and the string hello world appear on the right side of the equals operator, we have the function also appearing on the right side of the equals operator. This is what I mean when I say a function is a value just like an integer or a string. So this is a function value. Just like we can write I and str to the console like this, console.log of I and console.log of str. Similarly, we can also write console.log of f. Let us run this and see what the output is. So I have clicked run. As you can see, the output is 0, hello world as expected. And for this particular line of code, console.log of f, the output is the entire function definition. Let me make a small change to this function definition. Let us make this an arrow function that we have learned earlier. So I'm dropping the function keyword and placing an arrow between the function parameters and the function body. And now this is an arrow function. Let's clear the output and run it once again. If you observe the output for f, you can see that the output is the new arrow function definition. Next, let us look at an example of passing a function as an argument to another function. Here we have two functions. One is execute with logging, and the other is this function func. Let us examine execute with logging function. This is a traditional function definition, and it is taking in a parameter f, and we have a console.log statement here, and then we have f followed by brackets, which means that we are expecting f to be a function and we are calling f here, and at the end we have a console.log statement which says end execution. So we have a function call, and enclosing the function call are two console.log statements, begin execution of and end execution of. Let us examine this function func. Func is an arrow function. It takes in no parameters and it simply writes to the console hello world. And in this line of code, what we are doing is we are passing this func as an argument to this function execute with logging. Execute with logging is a function. Func is also a function, and we are passing this function func as an argument to this function execute with logging. Let's see the output. I'm clicking on run. As you can see, we have the output as follows. The first line of code, console.log begin execution of, is this particular line, and we see that this particular expression evaluates to the function body of func, and then in the second line we have the function call, and when we call the function, the output is hello world, so we get hello world in the second line, and then the third line is end execution of, which is the result of this particular line of code. Again, this expression gives the function body as the result. The important point to note here is that we are passing in a function called func as an argument to another function called execute with logging. Next, let us look at an example of returning a function as a return value of a function call. Here we have a function called create function which takes in a parameter called s, and Let's look at these lines of code. If s is equal to add, which is a string, then we are assigning f to an arrow function that takes in two parameters, a comma b, and the function body is a plus b, and this is the return value as well. And then we are returning f here. Similarly, here we have if s equals to subtract, then we are assigning f an arrow function again, which takes in two parameters, a comma b, and the function body is a minus b, which serves as the return value as well, and we are returning f here also. So the return value of this function, create function, is f here in both these cases, and f here is an arrow function and f here also is an arrow function. So we are returning a function as the return value of create function. Let's call create function with the string add and see what happens. So I'm going to click on run and the output is 5. Let's see how we got this output. When we call create function by passing in a string add, what happens is s becomes add, and then this block of code gets executed. F is assigned an arrow function and f is returned. So the return value of this function is this particular arrow function over here. And in this particular arrow function, there are two parameters and the function body is a plus b. So func becomes this particular arrow function right here. And when we call func with two parameters, 3, 2, what happens is 3 is assigned to a and 2 is assigned to b, and then the return value is a plus b, which is 5. The important point to note here is that we are returning an arrow function from within this function here. Even though in this example we are returning an arrow function, we could as well have returned a traditional function as well. So please remember that you can always return a function as the return value of a function. Let us look at one more example where we explore the different ways in which we can write our functions. Here we have one function called create add function. From its name you can guess that it is creating a function, and add func is a variable where that function definition is assigned, and we are returning add func. Again, add func is a function and we are returning add func as the return value of create add function. So when create add function is called over here, func will be assigned the return value of this function call, and that will be this particular function. And when func itself is called with two parameters 3 and 2, we get back the sum 3 plus 2, which is 5. Let's run this example, and as expected we can see that the output is 5. Now let us modify this function definition in a few different ways. As you can see, I have add func here, which is being assigned a function value, and I am immediately returning add func. We can get rid of add func variable from here and we can return it right from that line. Let me remove this line here since we don't need it. So now we have a return keyword here, and then we have a function definition right here. Since this function definition is also a value, we can just specify that beside the return keyword. Let us see if this works. Let me clear the output and run it one more time. And as you can see, the output is still the same. Now let us modify this particular function definition into an arrow function. Let me remove the function keyword and let me place the arrow symbol between the function parameters and the function body. Now let's clear the output and run it one more time. As you can see, the output is still the same. Previously, when discussing arrow functions, we have discussed that if the function body has only one line of code, we can drop the curly braces and remove the return keyword. So let me do that. So I'm going to remove the return keyword, and also I'm going to remove the ending curly brace. Now we have an arrow function definition beside the return keyword. Let's run this also and see if it works. I've clicked on run, and as you can see, the output is still the same. Next, let us convert the create add function into an arrow function. So let me drop this function keyword over here. Let me write const create add function equals, and let us put the arrow symbol between the function parameters and the function body. Now we have converted create add function into an arrow function also. Let us clear the previous output and run it one more time. And as you can see, the output is still the same. If we examine the function body of create add function, it is just one line. So we can drop the curly braces for create add function also. So let's do that, and let us remove the return keyword as well and bring this line of code onto the same line. Let us clear this output and run it and see if it works. As you can see, the output is still the same. So if we compare the function definition that we started with, which is over here, and if we compare the function definition that we ended up with when we converted everything to arrow functions, you can see that the syntax is very, very different. It is a matter of preference about which syntax is more clear, but it is very likely that you will find code written in both these ways.